Guess you don't count. That's what my sister, Serafina, said. Her voice wasn't loud. Just casual. Like she was pointing out the weather. She said it right when I found my seat at her wedding. The seating chart had guided me past the grand oak tables, past the glittering guests, and into the service hallway. My seat was a small, cold, stainless steel table, right next to the kitchen doors. The hallway smelled like expensive lavender, and the faint, sharp scent of industrial cleaner. Inside, I could hear the string quartet playing. My mother, Brenda, adjusted her pearls and looked away. My father, Mark, suddenly found something fascinating on the ceiling. I tightened my grip on the thick parchment envelope in my lap. The gift I'd prepared. I chose silence. No argument. No tears. I just stood up, smoothed down my dress, and walked out into the cold Napa air. Minutes later, the music stopped, and she went pale, and she screamed. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. The cold Napa air hit me, and for a second, I could breathe. Standing out there, I could see the whole scene through the massive glass walls of the winery. It looked like a silent movie. Hundreds of guests, all glittering, chandeliers dripping with crystals. The smell of rich lavender and charred oak from the vineyards mixing with the expensive wine. It was a perfect picture of wealth. And then there was my table. Stainless steel, cold to the touch. The kind they used to roll out bus tubs. This wasn't new. This was just louder. Growing up, we were the classic, toxic cliché. Serafina was the golden influencer. I was the quiet designer. Anything she did, anything she touched, was celebrated. My mother, Brenda, lived through her. Every Instagram post, every brand deal, every minor success was framed and hung on the wall of our family home, both literally and figuratively. My mother didn't just support Serafina, she consumed her success. It was her entire identity. And me, I was the background, the infrastructure, the one who made things work quietly. I was the talented graphic designer. I was the one who actually had the skill. The one who spent years honing a craft. Serafina, she just knew how to post. My report cards were ignored. My design awards were met with a blank stare. My successes were inconvenient, because they took the spotlight off the main act for even a second. I remember my mother telling me once, Elara, just let your sister have this. You're so independent. You don't need the validation. Independent. That's what they called it. I called it being ignored. I wasn't independent. I was just alone. And as I stood there in the cold, I realized my mother was wrong. I did need validation. I just wasn't going to ask them for it anymore. The humiliation. It wasn't just about a table. It was about that Christmas, 2 years ago. I remember I was so proud. I'd spent 6 months on a single project. A full branding concept for a new wellness app. It wasn't just a college assignment. It was my future. I brought my laptop into the living room, my hands shaking a little. And I showed them. My father, Mark, just nodded. His eyes were already back on the football game. Looks professional. Kid. My mother, Brenda, gave it that quick. Vacant smile. That's lovely. Dear. So creative. Serafina just snorted from the couch. Not even looking up from her phone. Wow. Elara. You're really going to change the world with fonts. 3 weeks later, she launched her new brand. A 6-figure deal. Serafina Wellness. It was my concept. My portfolio. My future. Every font. Every color palette. Every single design element. Stolen. When I confronted them, my voice shaking, holding the printouts from her new website next to my design files. Serafina just laughed. But it was my mother's words that broke me. I went to her, pleading. Mom. Look. It's identical. She stole my work. My mother, Brenda, didn't even look at the papers. She just sighed. That long-suffering sigh she reserved just for me. Elara. Please, don't make things difficult. It's Christmas. You should be happy for your sister. She's working so hard. And sitting there, in that cold hallway, I finally understood. I wasn't silent all those years because I was weak. I was silent because I had been programmed to be. That's the trap of being the easy child. Isn't it? You get praised for being independent. You get called low maintenance. You're told you're strong because you never ask for anything. But it's a lie. It's not a compliment. It's a set of instructions. It's behavioral training. They are teaching you, slowly and painfully, every single day, that your needs do not matter. Your voice is an inconvenience. Your pain is drama. They don't see you as strong. They see you as convenient. My silence was their comfort. And for 28 years, I had let them be comfortable. I thought about that stolen six-figure design. I thought about my mother's words, "Don't make things difficult." I looked down at the thick parchment envelope in my lap, and I thought to myself, okay, I will. Just as I decided that, the kitchen door swung open, flooding the hallway with a burst of laughter and the smell of roasting garlic. And then, I saw her, Serafina. She wasn't supposed to be out here. The bride, in her cloud of white, was supposed to be inside, basking. But she'd come out. For me. She didn't look worried. She looked satisfied. She glided over, her perfect dress whispering over the stone floor. And she stopped, just a few feet away. "Oh, Elara," she said, tilting her head. That perfect, practiced smile on her face. "Looks like they finally found a place for you." The old me would have shrunk. The old me would have looked away, mumbled, "It's fine," and just disappeared. But something about that cold steel table, something about that Christmas 2 years ago, it made me still. I looked right at her. There was always room for both of us. "Sarah." Her smile twitched. "What did you say?" I said. I kept my voice low. Calm. "There was always room. You're the one who keeps shrinking it." I saw a flash in her eyes. Not just anger. Fear. The kind of fear a performer gets when a light flickers off script. And as I looked at her, really looked at her, I didn't just see a bully. I finally understood the golden child complex. We always think the golden child has it all. We think they are the ones who are truly loved. But that's the lie. They aren't loved. They are used. Serafina was never a daughter. She was a trophy. She was my mother's projection of perfection. She was my father's one success. Her entire life. She's been suffocating under the pressure to be flawless. And to be flawless, you can't have flaws. Or in my case, a sister who is a constant, quiet reminder that you're not the only one. The golden child isn't just a role, it's a cage. And in that cage, they become pathologically narcissistic, desperate to protect their image. She didn't hate me because I was different. She hated me because I was real. She needed me to be at the bottom, so she could feel like she was still at the top. Her anger was the mask for her terror. The mask slipped back on. She tossed her perfect hair. "Ugh. Stop being so jealous. Elara," she sneered. "God. You always have to make everything about you. This is my day. My day." That's all she had to say. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't leaving. Not yet. I was going to give her the gift. I didn't say another word. Serafina's face was a mask of triumphant pity. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd finally broken me. I just stood up from the cold steel table. I turned and walked calmly back toward the main entrance of the ballroom, my footsteps echoing slightly in the service hall. As I stepped back into the warm light of the reception, I could feel every eye. My mother, Brenda, looked horrified, not for me, but by me. She was terrified I was about to make a scene. My father, Mark, just looked down at his shoes. I walked straight to the gift table. A mountain of white boxes and silver ribbon. The groom's mother, Cynthia, was standing near it. She was the only person who wasn't looking at me with pity or annoyance. She was looking at me with curiosity. A sharp, Analytical curiosity. As a CFO, she was trained to spot discrepancies. And my entire family was a massive one. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. I gave her a small, tight smile. I took my thick, heavy parchment envelope, the one with to Serafina and Julian written on it in my best calligraphy, and I didn't hide it. I placed it right on top of the entire pile. Then, I turned my back on all of it. On the music, on the lavender, on my family, and I walked straight out the front doors and into the night. I didn't need to see what happened next. I'd already designed it. As I walked through the parking lot, the gravel crunching under my heels, I finally let myself think about what I'd done. That wasn't a gift. It was an invoice. I'd known about Julian for months. A chance run-in with one of Serafina's former friends had confirmed everything. Inside that envelope, I took high-quality, full-color printouts of every single text message. Serafina, bragging about how naive Julian was, how he was sweet, but dumb, how her 5-year plan was to fleece him and use his tech money to finally fund her brand. That part was for Julian, but I'd added something else. Something just for Cynthia. Tucked neatly behind the printouts was a small, elegant crystal USB. A little symbol I couldn't resist. On that drive, I'd created 2 folders. Folder 1 was labeled I Mages. That's where I put all the screenshots of the affair. Folder 2 was labeled Business. In that folder, I put my original, time-stamped design files from my encrypted hard drive. All dated 2 years ago. Right next to them, I put the emails Serafina had sent to her investors. Using those exact, stolen designs to get her 6-figure seed money. I knew Julian was the heart, but Cynthia was the brain. And I knew a chief financial officer wouldn't be able to resist doing her own due diligence. I was already on the highway when the explosion happened. I didn't see it, but I heard. Oh! I heard. The story was pieced together for me later. From texts. From voicemails. From the whispers that became a roar. Inside the winery, the music was soft. Serafina and Julian were in the middle of their first dance. She was a perfect picture of rehearsed perfection. He was spinning her, smiling. The cameras flashing. Then my gift was opened. The groom's mother, Cynthia, was the one who brought it over. She told me later she'd had a bad feeling all night. She walked onto the dance floor, holding the thick parchment envelope. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice cutting through the music. "You forgot one." Serafina laughed, pulling the ribbon free. The paper fell away. I was told her smile didn't just fade. It froze. It cracked. She saw the printouts of her own messages. "He's so naive. 5 years and I get the house." She tried to shove the papers back into the envelope. "It's nothing," she snapped. "Just a stupid, jealous joke from Alara." But Julian had already seen his name. "What joke?" "Sarah, what is that?" Before Serafina could hide it, Cynthia, with the swift precision of a CFO, took the crystal USB from the envelope. "Let me see." She didn't ask. She walked straight to the DJ station, where the laptop was already connected to the massive projector screen hanging over the dance floor. The one that had been showing a slideshow of their perfect life? Serafina lunged. "Don't, you can't." But Cynthia was already there. She plugged it in. 2 folders popped up on the giant screen. For all 300 guests to see. Images. Business. Cynthia, in her infinite, cold wisdom, ignored the folder that would have exposed the affair. That was personal. She was a professional. She clicked business. The screen flickered. And then, there they were. My designs. My original logo concepts. My wireframes. My 6-figure branding package. Every file meticulously time-stamped. 2 years old. There was a total, crushing silence in the winery. Julian just stared. Cynthia's voice was no longer that of a mother-in-law. It was the voice of a chief financial officer addressing a failed audit. "Julian," she said, loud and clear. "My firm almost invested in this brand. These are the original designs. Serafina, these are not yours." That's when she screamed. It was the sound I'd heard echoing across the valley. Not a scream of heartbreak. It was the sound of a predator caught in a trap. The sound of pure, narcissistic rage at being seen. "That bitch," she shrieked, her voice tearing. "Elora, she did this. She set me up." Julian didn't move. He didn't look at her. He just looked at the screen. Then, down at the linen-covered table where their prenup was waiting to be signed after the ceremony, he picked it up. Didn't read it. He just tore it. Slowly. Right down the middle. "Cynthia," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Call security. And call our lawyers. This marriage is over." That's when my mother, Brenda, fainted, and my father, Mark, finally spoke. His voice was just a hollow whisper. But in that silence, everyone heard it. "You always did," he said, staring at the floor. You always stole everything from her. I'd been driving for an hour. My phone wouldn't stop. It buzzed and lit up in the cup holder. A frantic beacon of someone else's emergency. 22 missed calls. 45 unread messages. I picked it up, shut it off completely, and tossed it onto the passenger seat. I pulled over at a scenic overlook, high above the Napa Valley. The sun was starting to set, and the vineyards below looked like a quilt of dark green and gold. The air was clean. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anger. I just felt light. The crushing weight I'd carried my whole life. The weight of trying to be seen. It was just gone. They thought I would always accept that stainless steel table. They thought I would always be grateful for the scraps. They didn't know I was on my way to build my own studio. The copyright lawsuit Cynthia's legal team was already drafting would make sure of that. I would never speak to any of them again. And in that quiet, looking over the valley, I thought about you. Hey, you. This is a letter to anyone who's ever felt like they were seated on the sidelines. To anyone who's ever been told to shrink so that someone else could shine. Stop waiting for an invitation to their table. They put me next to the service door. But in the end, I was the only one who actually walked through it to a new life. Sometimes, the loudest revenge isn't a scream. It's the silence of your own footsteps, leaving the room. Have you ever had to walk away from a place that wasn't meant for you? Just to find yourself. Share your story. And don't forget to like and follow, so we can all build our own tables.